Hi there, my name is Denny, and welcome to the Speak Dicely podcast, the show where I get together with other tabletop enthusiasts and we speak Dicely together. This week, in our continued exploration of classes in D&D, we're covering what seems to be the most popular class in my social circles based on the amount of people I had volunteering to appear on this episode. I'm talking about the class that gets mad and obliterates all. It's Barbarians. And joining me for this discussion are Jesse Beam and KoibaRNG. Hey there.
Hey.
Hello.
How's it going today?
Going well.
Pretty
thank
good.
you.
Yeah. Beautiful day.
Sorry,
I'm going to talk over everybody. That's just...
I mean, same. No one's going to hear anything. It's just going to be like three voices at the same time. I can't even fucking count how many people there are here. It's three of us.
We need like a little squeaky rubber duck whenever it's your turn to speak. You just go...
Oh my god.
No ducks knowing us, we all squeak the duck at the same time.
Exactly. Actually, I do have this. I know the people listening can't see it, but it's a stress ball beholder.
That is amazing.
It's adorable. However, it did fall apart on like the second day after I bought it. So not the greatest quality, but it's fun to like squish.
I just have a dragon in a snow globe.
Can't really squeeze that one.
No, I mean, you could. A barbarian could.
Yeah, it just breaks it once. There you go, I'm done.
All right. So we're talking about Barbarians today. And like I'd mentioned in the intro there, we probably had like 6 people wanting to be part of this conversation.
Everybody wants to talk about the big mad.
Yeah, man.
Big mad beats the big bad.
Exactly.
Stops us from being the big sad.
Yeah, so like what is a barbarian?
I just told you, the big mad.
Big mad.
Yes. So yeah, a lot of their identity is the fact that they are angry.
Or at least high emotionally charged in some cases.
Which is funny because I always interpret their rage power. I know in the book they tell you flavor it however you want. Like maybe it's a battle prowess or maybe it's like whatever. But to me, the default is always just an adrenaline rush.
Yeah.
And I guess that's just like my own interpretation of, you know, when you like you get that runner's high after you've been sprinting for a while or like you've been lifting big heavy weights and you just get that like second wind. Like I always interpret it that way, so it's not necessarily tied to anger, but more like what you said, like just this heightened emotional state of I'm going to shrug off every blow because I'm just so in the zone.
Yeah, I'm glad that you phrased it that way too. Dog has made an appearance on the podcast. But yeah, I'm glad you phrased it like the high emotional state because yeah, I think barbarians are one of the classes that suffers from a very specific image, like a very specific stereotype, kind of like bards.
It's like the class things, the like the eyes go red and they go like just angry. Like, I have a certain friend. It's the common one you see a lot is they have something like traumatic happen in their past and like, oh, fucking just gonna use that to rile myself up. Okay, fucking yeah, remember that piece of shit? Yeah, fuck him. Like, oh, I hate Jerry. Fuck this guy, and then they just go. Like, just get themselves in the zone.
I think like barbarians, and I would probably throw in like maybe clerics and paladins, sometimes monks. They all have this sort of like their class features seem very tied to a specific role play choice that doesn't always sit with people. Like I know a lot of people say like, well, if monks are all about like the Western interpretation of Eastern martial arts movies, like how does that fit in medieval fantasy and things like that? And I think barbarian suffers the same, where I think a lot of people will read the class description and then think, well, I don't really want to play this like brutish outlander tribal warrior kind of shirtless dude. I just want to be someone who's really good at killing stuff with a big weapon. And I think a lot of times people feel like maybe narrowed by the class when really, you know, the challenge and of course the great thing about this kind of game is that from table to table you're free to do really whatever you want. So if you open it up and you just think about, okay, the core feature of the barbarian is they have, even if you don't even call it rage, if you call it adrenaline rush or whatever you want to call it, they have a feature that they can activate a couple of times per long rest that makes them better at fighting and better at shrugging off damage. That's really the core tenet of the barbarian. I am really good at this like sort of raw, untrained, brute force kind of fighting, and a couple of times per day I'm really hard to kill.
I mean, yeah, that is like barbarians in a nutshell. Really like big fight. Like it's just fighting. Like it's that obviously you have the fighter class, which is more like train. I feel like that's more like trained in a certain like environment. You know, you've gone to like a fighting school, you've gone to like sparring class. Whereas barbarian is more like I just learned how to fucking hit things hard, or I've learned how to like swing this using just because I know how to. Like it's like homeschooled versus like academic schooled almost. Is that like
yeah, if we're going the like Marvel comparison, you've got the Hulk is really good at smashing crap because he's incredibly strong. Captain America isn't quite as strong, but like he knows where to hit. He knows the weak points.
Yeah, it's a difference. Yeah, the difference of training versus instinct. So you mentioned there the Marvel example of the Hulk. That is like a prime example of, well, the angry barbarian anyway.
Yeah, I feel like that's most. I would argue that's probably most people's these days. They're probably first touchstone to this kind of play style. I would assume that's probably one of the first things they think about. Like, oh, so like a couple of times a day I Hulk out and break stuff.
Yeah.
In fact, I sometimes even when I'm playing, I refer to it as okay, I Hulk out.
Yeah, like what other pop culture examples of barbarians are there? While I was doing my research, I found this was actually really hard to kind of pinpoint.
Well, and I think that's just the nature of trying to take a unique character idea and shove it into like a class system. You know, it doesn't always work.
No, for sure. Sometimes it's a stretch.
I think barbarian is almost so unique. It's so like because most things that would class barbarian is probably better class as a fighter, right? You know, you can think of anything that like what's like Colossus from like X-Men. Could he technically be a barbarian? But he's not really that like rage type. He's just a big fucking dude who just absorbs a lot of damage. So is he just more of a fighter or like a paladin?
Yeah, I would say he's a pretty calm guy.
Yeah, he's calm. You know, it's like most people who like absorb a lot of damage tend like the bit is weird. They have in pop culture a lot of these like bigger guys tend to be like almost more calm, or they're like the villain. And like even then, it's not like, you know, could you argue that like Bane is like a barbarian almost?
Interesting.
Like,
yeah, that would make sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, yeah, he doesn't like rage, but he definitely like has a fuck ton of like power, can fucking hit like a truck. Like, you know, as I was saying, like, yes, he doesn't get like angry. He doesn't like, you know, have this other ability, but he definitely has like everything of a barbarian apart from this rage. Because it's called rage, there's not many things that like it's hard to think in pop culture to write a character who goes completely unhinged.
I mean, you could flavor his oh boy, I'm going to reveal myself as not a comic book nerd, so I apologize to everybody. But Bane has the like serum that he like injects in himself, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you were to play like a Bane sort of like D&D barbarian, it's like, okay, you've got these capsules of serum that you inject in yourself to get your rage, but you only have a limited number of uses, and then the thing has to fill up like overnight or something like that. I could see that working really, really interestingly, like in tandem with like a sort of artificer kind of idea, or maybe in the kind of steampunky technological world of you know, not necessarily obviously the Forgotten Realms, but like some of the other like the Spelljammery kind of stuff where it's less about like medieval magic and more just about like weird stuff. That's cool. I kind of want to play that now.
Yeah, kind of a Jekyll and Hyde inspired barbarian. That's really cool.
Yeah, actually, Jekyll and Hyde is an interesting parallel because, you know, I think he was obviously, I think, trying to do more of like a werewolf kind of lore, because the idea is when he becomes the creature, he actually loses his sense of self and his mind, which I mean, you could certainly play the barbarian that way, and that could be very interesting. I imagine most people probably wouldn't, unless maybe they were a berserker, because you tend to want to still play intelligently in combat and make, you know, choices that are going to advance the violence. Not sure what I'm saying.
Jekyll and Hyde's like the weirdest like warlock patron where it's just yourself.
Yeah.
I really like that you have Wolverine written down. I think that's a really cool example because even though he's not necessarily the biggest dude, he, especially if you watch, like, watching Hugh Jackman in the movies, just get this intense, like, roid rage in his eyes. I remember as a kid, I was watching, I think it's the second one, the second X-Men. We're talking like the Fox, like before all the millions of reboots. I think there's a bit where people are attacking the school, right? And Wolverine is like the only adult there to defend them, and he's just going like ape shit, ripping people apart. And then there's a scene in particular where he like leaps down over a balcony and just like stabs 2 guys. And of course they do the like hero shot, and he's glistening with sweat, and his muscles are bulging and all of that stuff. But like just the look on his face as a kid, I remember being, even though he was the hero, I was terrified. I was like, he's gonna jump out of the screen and murder me. And I think that is a really great example of that just like intense battle, like blinders that a barbarian has when they rage. Like it's all about doing the most damage possible, and just, I don't even care if I get hit. In fact, if I get hit, that just makes me madder.
Yeah, he's very much that primal energy that a lot of barbarians encompass. And that's why I threw him on that list.
Plus, the healing thing is kind of like taking half damage from physical attacks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what you don't get a lot, is that like resistance in pop culture. Because a lot of like, how do you show, like a lot of places, like how do you show that, like,
you get it a bit depending on your interpretation of the Hulk.
true.
Because there's some interpretations where the more he gets hurt, the angrier and bigger he gets. That you could kind of see that parallel.
I mean, most superheroes too, like they've all got the plot armor, so to speak.
Oh yeah.
Oh, of course, yeah.
So everybody's got.
This should
damage
kill you, but you
resistance.
remember that trading card I gave you like 2 movies ago? You've kept in your pocket ever since. So that just deflected the blow
Yeah,
by a
like,
millimeter. It's like,
Captain America goes fisticuffs one-on-one with Thanos, and I'm kind of like, I mean, yeah, he's the hero, but like, come on, man. He's just an Olympic athlete. Like, he's not in any way, he's not Superman. That's a whole nother discussion.
Another example I threw in for the pop cultures is Chewbacca. It's a bit more of a stretch, this one.
I can see that.
Yeah, I mean, he has his moments. It's like a tendencies kind of thing. But he primarily he uses a crossbow.
Yeah, that's interesting. I wonder if there's like, if he's a fighter with the ranged fighting style multi-classed with the barbarian.
Yeah, he took 1 level in multi-class barbarian because he wanted no armor, and also if anyone gets in range, he just like, I rip your arm off.
Yeah, I think he definitely the strength thing for sure. And I think we see a bit in the movies of especially when he gets those intense moments of emotion. I don't know, spoiler alert, in oh god, I hate the sequels. What's the name of the first one? Force Awakens. In The Force Awakens, something bad happens and Chewie just loses his shit, right? And he just starts firing like crazy.
We could probably say it.
Well, I don't know.
I mean, if you haven't seen him already, don't.
Han dies. And when Han dies, Chewie loses his best friend and just goes like completely apeshit, right? There's that bit where he's just like blowing crap up and shooting Kylo, and I think that's like, holy crap, that's barbarian rage right there.
Yeah. And then the big one, and we were talking about this a little bit before the podcast started, and I feel like this is more because it inspired the class, but Conan the Barbarian.
Thoughts? Because I have a lot.
He's not a barbarian in the D&D sense.
No, I think, I mean, he's a barbarian in the sort of politically incorrect cultural sense, in that back in the day we referred to warriors of the the Visigoth and Germanic tribes. They were called barbarians simply because they showed up in Rome and started wrecking shit. And so he's a barbarian in the sense that, his lineage is kind of tied to that wilder nomadic style of historical figure. But just in terms of like raw fighting, a lot of what he demonstrates in the books are really like thief and fighter skills. His whole MO was never like, I mean, he's an excellent in combat, don't get me wrong, but his whole MO was like personal advancement. I'm gonna break into the tower and steal that stuff because I want that gold, not necessarily because I love to fight. And I mean, really, like most of the stuff we see him doing is piratey stuff, which is not really a pirate class, but like that's how he often described himself, as like, I am a pirate. He sailed with a group of pirates for years. Yeah, he's kind of a mix of a lot. He's got some paladin in him because he was all about like protecting the innocent and the outdated chivalrous notions of like, I must protect women and all that stuff that writers back then loved to do for some reason.
Oh, the 70s, 80s, and 90s.
Yeah, man. Well, and even older than that,
Yeah.
like it's sort of that. It's like the pulp hero where they're sort of good at everything, which sometimes can be really boring. But I mean, if it's written well.
But yeah, so I think we're in agreement on that. Conan the Barbarian isn't a D&D barbarian, for sure. I agree with the fighter and rogue assessment of him. But yeah, I think Conan inspired this class in the sense of like that shirtless Arnold Schwarzenegger, really buff character kind of idea. But it really stepped away from there, really. Let's quickly run through all the features that every barbarian in D&D is going to share. And we could We could stop and talk about them as we go along the way. I'm going to skip over all the Tasha's Cauldron of Everything stuff that recently got released because I'm still to get caught up on that book. But if you want to be an effective barbarian, strength should be your highest ability score, and it's nice to have Constitution as your second highest. But as per usual, these are just suggestions. At first level, barbarians will get Rage and Unarmored Defense.
I mean, your Rage is the bread and butter. It's literally the entire class in that first level. Like, it's what you're going to be going back on all the time, and like all the subclasses have something to do with your Rage. So it's literally like your mainstay.
I think it's a good example of 5th edition's method of just really front-loading all the classes, giving them their main stuff in like the first 3 levels, and then everything else is just your main stuff getting better and better, really. Which, of course, makes multiclassing a dangerously temptatious thing.
Indeed.
I really like Armored Defense because it's the same with the Monk. Like, I like features that give me survivability without having to depend on equipment because... I don't know, it may just be the style of game that I often play, but I'm often in situations where either we're in a city and we don't want to be parading around in like full plate, or we're like, underground squeezing through tunnels, and we're in situations where we kind of have to travel light, and it's really fun to use abilities like that where it's like, okay, yeah, everyone else in the party is a bit weakened by not having armor, but I'm doing great because I got beefy chonk, And yeah, I think it's interesting and it's very fun. I've never played with a barbarian that uses a shield. When I was playing my barbarian at level 1, I bought a shield because I thought maybe I'd want to use it, but then I realized that great axes are really fun, and I just gave the shield to the ranger. But it's interesting that they get shield proficiency when that I feel like that's not an option that's taken a lot.
Two-handed weapons are so good.
Yeah, I wonder if you guys have any idea what their like thinking might be behind that. I don't know. I mean, I guess Conan used a shield at times. Maybe
I assume it's probably going to be so you can like, I guess in theory you can almost like be more of a tank, I suppose. So you do less damage, but you're literally the stalwart, like, I'm going to get up in someone's face and just kind of put the shield up. I guess more of they're thinking of that flavor. So not every barbarian is the like, the shirtless fucking guy who's up there. It's like, oh, hey, he has a shield as well. So he's not just a, complete rage man. I guess is what they thought. Maybe. I don't know.
I wonder if it's also because, I mean, the lower levels are very deadly. And depending on how you generate your stats, I lucked out because we rolled for stats, which of course is wildly unpredictable. And I started at level 1 with an 18 strength and an 18 constitution, which was just bananas broken. But your average person, if they're doing point buy or taking the standard array, they're probably putting their 15 in their strength. They're probably putting their 14 in their con or their dex. And then, assuming they take a mathematically advantageous racial choice, they've got like a +3 to their hit and probably a +3 to their con. And then if we assume they've got like a +2 to their dex, they're sitting at what, 15 AC, which is, pretty good. But I wonder if the shield thinking is like, okay, well, for the first couple of levels, you might want that +2 just to stay alive because you are the one up front taking all the hits,
Yeah, I think it is just the big difference of, because I think most people going into Barbarian are like, I want to deal a lot of damage. But if you take the shield, then you're like, I still deal a lot of damage because when I rage, I do extra damage. But also, now I'm just more invincible.
Yeah, I guess it depends on how you wanna consider your barbarian, as the shock trooper or as the like bulwark.
I guess like I mean in my case, I've played a low dex barbarian, which it's great when you didn't realize certain things. I think like then if you have like a low con or low dex, it probably makes sense to use a shield. I fucking didn't because fuck that. But I like using two-handed weapons. But
Yeah, especially because you can also for the first couple levels pick up like some medium armor to offset like a crappy dex, until you start improving stuff.
yeah, you can pick up a lot of stuff to like deal with it. I don't know. It's a weird choice. I've never like thought about it. I just thought, yeah, that exists. I guess maybe they did fighters get like shield proficiency, right? And I think paladins do as well. Maybe it's just to try and like anything that could be in melee gets like shield.
Yeah, every martial class has them.
Yeah, I guess that's probably what it is. It probably is just like
it's an option.
It's just an option. So in case
sort of their like default, and then they expanded from there.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that kind of makes sense. At second level, we get reckless attack and danger sense.
Reckless attack is my favorite.
Mm-hmm. That is a nice ability.
There's very few classes that get on-demand advantage whenever the hell they want it. Even ones where they get advantage almost all the time, like rogues, you still have to set it up, right? You still have to ensure there's someone next to you or that you're hidden. So it's like, it's easy to get, but it's not like, don't even think about it, easy to get.
It's not guaranteed.
Which is reckless attack. There is a payoff, but I like that payoff because one of the bigger criticisms about the barbarian class is the lack of choice in combat. It's always just, I rage, and then I hit things until they're dead. They don't get spells. They don't really get a lot of features, like, say the monk or the fighter, where they can, if it's a battle master, like, do I use my maneuver here? If it's a monk, do I stun? How do I use my key? So I like that the barbarian has this one sort of give and take thing where they're like, okay, I can get a really great feature here. I can do something really effective, but there is a cost to it later on that might bite me in the butt. So I have to kind of weigh those options. I love reckless attack.
Yeah, because you get to choose to gain advantage, but in return, anybody until your next turn has advantage attacking you.
And the dangerous thing about that is it's any and all attacks. So you might at first think like, okay, well, melee attacks. No, if there's a spellcaster in the back who's casting an attack roll spell, it's very deadly against you now. But I think I also like it from like this role play perspective, and how I often use reckless attack when I'm in a combat is I might only use it on the one enemy that's giving everyone the most trouble, or I'll use it on the person who hit me last because they pissed me off. It's sort of like we're going back to Marvel again, but in Age of Ultron, when Ultron just flies up and grabs Thor by the throat, and he's just like, Thor, you're bothering me. That's for whatever reason, whenever I reckless attack, that's always what I think of. I'm like fighting the white dragon, and I'm like, white dragon, you're bothering me.
Oh, that's awesome.
Man, just getting advantage whenever you want for an attack is so good. So nice.
Especially later levels, which we'll get to when you start expanding your crit damage. You want as many chances to crit as possible, and rolling 220s
and
is
say
always
it doesn't matter if things get advantage on you if they're fucking dead. If you're crit.
Yeah, if you can ensure that they're going to die, then it's absolutely worth it. Unless, like we mentioned, that there's ranged attackers.
Okay, so answer me this one, because I DM and Denny, you DM.
Yep.
I don't. Do you DM?
I have DM'd one shots, but I don't particularly DM often.
All right, so all three of us have DM'd. I find the danger sense a very like DM stickler ability. Like some DMs are like, yeah, use it on whatever Dex, I don't care. And some DMs are like, no, it's a trap and you weren't aware of it, therefore you didn't see it, therefore forget it.
I'm in the boat of like, if you can visually in the reaction time of like the trap activating and it hitting you, you see it, you can get the danger sense, right? Like if the fucking thing's happening at the end of the corridor and it's like coming towards you, you're gonna have a fraction of a second because it's a sense. It's not like a active like, oh, I'm seeing it now, I'm dodging it. Just somewhere in your brain, it's gone. There's danger, and then it's sensing it. So I think obviously it's very like situational. Obviously, if a trap hits you, you don't fucking see it. You don't see it, right? Like you've stepped on a pressure plate and something from the pressure plate's come up, you're not going to be like noticing that or whatever. Or, I think like if it's in your line of sight, you can get it for the because you have actively like noticed it in some way. Is that like it's a spidey sense? That's what it is. It literally is just it's your spidey sense.
Yeah, I think of it the same way of in fact, I'm probably a little more liberal with how I usually allow it, because I usually consider, unless the weapon or trap thing is invisible, or it's a spellcaster who was, hiding or something like that, and you didn't beat their stealth roll, I basically am like, yeah, if it's a dex save, like, take it, because it's that uncanny, like, the hair on the back of your neck goes up and you're like, something's coming, I don't know what it is, but I duck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, even if it's coming behind you, like, that way you don't technically see it, but the trap isn't hidden, and it's just that uncanny sense of, oh crap, and then you duck and the thing, like, zooms over your head or something.
And I mean, the feature also specifies, in order for it to work, you can't be blind, deafened, or incapacitated. Mm-hmm. So that does give me the sense of, like, this is your instinct. I agree. Even if you're not looking directly at it, like the hair on the back of your neck, you hear metal in the walls begin to move. You're like, all right, time to move into a position where I'm not currently.
Especially because 5th edition doesn't really have facing rules the way older editions were.
Yeah.
Like if you're facing one way in combat, that doesn't change anything. Like, you can turn and face anywhere for free. So yeah, I wonder, like, there's an interesting, that kind of blurs the lines between like the hard coded rules and the sort of soft coded rules. That's a terrible way of phrasing it. Yeah, I don't know. That's just one that I find DM to DM, they often, and I think it's because dex saves are often pretty nasty. They aren't as nasty in terms of taking you out of a fight the way like a wisdom save or an intelligence save might be, but dex saves tend to be nasty because of damage, like fireball and stuff like that. Like a dex save usually deals a crap ton of damage, and I think some DMs are kind of hesitant to be like, okay, well, if I give them advantage on pretty much every dex save, then they've basically, they've got proficiency in strength, proficiency in con saves, and now I've given them not proficiency, but a sizable bonus to dex. That's a bonus to 3 saves, and they might think, well, that's unbalanced. But there's plenty of classes that get, like, rogues get intelligence saves later on. Monks eventually get, like, all saves, I think. Paladins get to add charisma to basically everything. So I think the barbarian needs just that little bit of edge towards something, especially because, again, if you're not rolling, your dex might not be very good. Whereas most other classes, except maybe fighter, probably have some decent dex because they're depending on it for their AC.
And like what we were talking about on armored defense too, like the fact that exists where you can use your con in your AC gives you the opportunity to make dexterity a dump stat. So if you did, this kind of saves you.
I made dexterity a dump stat.
Right? Like, I figure most classes would probably go, okay, if I'm a martial, it's strength and then dex. If I'm a spellcaster, it's my spellcasting and then dex. But barbarians, I would think you would want to put it in con, because it's doing the same thing as your dex in that it's adding to your AC, but it's also beefing up your hit points. And since your hit points are effectively doubled against physical damage, you would probably want to make that as big as possible, because the whole fantasy of being like so jacked that wounds don't hurt you.
I like being like a big jacked character, and in my head I was like, imagine if you just a fucking like really just like cack-handed and like not dexterous at all, like picks up a glass, it doesn't raise his own straight, fucking breaks. Is that like, just kind of big guy who just like doesn't have any peripheral vision really? That's why I always think dex is a bit more as that like doesn't know where his body is in relation to everything else. Like when he's fighting and he's raging, he's concentrated and he's in there. But the rest of the time, he's just like, "What's that?" Hitting into people. It's like, I like the view.
And I think the designers wanted the mechanics to support that kind of fantasy for people who choose to play it that way, right? So I think that's why it's written the way it is.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, let's keep her moving. So at 3rd level, you get your subclass options, or what the book calls Primal Path. So the player's handbook only gave us 2 options for the barbarian: the Path of the Berserker and the Path of the Totem Warrior. Xanathar's Guide to Everything gave us Path of the Ancestral Guardian, Storm Herald, and the Zealot. Tasha's Cauldron of Everything gave us Path of the Beast and Wild Magic, and Stormcoast's Adventuring Guide gave us Path of the Battle Rager, but it's only accessible by dwarves.
Boo.
and you gain
Oh.
subclass features at 3rd level when you take this, as well as 6th, 10th, and 14th levels.
I'm gonna be mean. Battle Rager sucks.
I'm gonna be doubly mean. I fucking hate Path of the Wild Magic, but here we go. Yeah, I could rag on that shit for hours.
I don't think there's really any room. Like, I get it from lore, but I don't think there's any room in official rules to exclude a race from a class anymore.
Well, and that's why they walked back the whole only elves can be blade singers, right?
That's right.
Because, yeah, sure, if you want to say in your game, according to the lore, only elves know how to do this, great, bring that up at session 0. But in terms of giving a set of rules for people to then take and do what they want with, I think they should be as open as possible. That's why I really like the Tasha's alternate rules, where you can basically just pick whatever race you want and then give it whatever stats you want. I think, if anything, that's going to lead to fewer people being half-elf charisma casters and variant human everything else's. So, yeah, I like the freedom there. So Battle Rager, like, from a flavor perspective is weird to me, but also just from an ability perspective, it's kind of lame. Like, you get a couple extra points of damage if you happen to be wearing spiky armor, but like we discussed, most barbarians probably don't want to wear armor as they get higher levels, so it's like, it's this weird non-synergy between the flavor is cool, but the mechanics are kind of like, I don't get it. It's just not what I think the barbarian should be.
Yeah, I think you get that with a lot of the subclasses at first. I think they have the core of the barbarian, but then sometimes they go with like wild magic. Oh my god, I hate it so much. It's in Tasha's.
At least the thing that Battle Rager has over wild magic is we can accuse them of saying, well, it was the Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide. They hadn't fully figured out how 5th edition worked yet.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
Whereas,
like, that's why their stuff was kind of like, yeah, this makes sense. But you'd think by Tasha's, they'd be like, yeah, we know how this works.
wild magic literally, like, is a cool idea, but they gave it 10 options to roll every time you rage. Every time you rage, 1 of 10 things happen. Like, that's not, you think of like a wild magic sorcerer, it's 100 options, if not more. This is like 10 options, none of which are like amazing. None of which are like exceptionally bad. Like, it's cool, but it's like, I don't do anything. It's just have a bit of flair for why, because it's like, great, good, thanks.
Well, do you think in their mind their thought was, okay, so for the people who want barbarians with just a little bit more change battle to battle, we'll give them this, but not too much, because, otherwise just play sorcerer?
I guess that's what they wanted, but like, in my opinion, like, I've talked to a couple people who think it's like amazing. I'm like, cool. I just don't think it's very good. It's not how I think I like my barbarian. I like my barbarians anything you want, but I do like that being, you have your sort of way, and this is kind of like your fighting way, because you've like trained in this certain way to fight. So like, your raging is obviously different for every barbarian, but it's like, I've learned that, hey, I need to protect my buddies better, so I need, that's how I've always battled people around me, so I want to protect them. It's that, like, you have kind of like a core reason why you fight almost.
Well, Denny, you and I played in a game where I believe someone was playing a wild magic barbarian. It was like ages ago, back before the pandemic, at my place, when Matt was DMing. Do you recall?
Oh, yes. It was my buddy Nick, I think, was the barbarian.
Yeah. I think they were a wild magic, were they not?
It was either them or Jason. I don't recall which of them was playing that, but yeah, somebody was a wild magic barbarian, and I don't recall if they ever really got to do much, because I think it was a lot of investigation in that one shot.
I remember, that's true, we didn't have a very many fights in that game, so it might be an unfair example to the class, but I do recall that during one fight we did have, because I think the wild magic guys get a thing where they can regenerate a spell slot for somebody.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
And which helped me because I was playing a wizard, so he gave me like a first level spell slot, which was great. But other than that, it was kind of just like, I'm a barbarian that has wacky stuff happen to them sometimes.
Yeah, it's a party trick barbarian.
Yeah, I could see it being interesting if you were doing, I'm a big fan of like themed parties these days, where everybody like plays a separate class or subclass, but they're all kind of based around a specific theme. So you've got like a wild magic sorcerer, then you take a wild magic barbarian, then maybe you take like a
College of Glamour bard.
Yeah, like just where it's all based around the sort of random wacky kooky stuff.
Based on,
or
like,
you
Feywild,
take
would
like
say.
an evoker wizard and a dragon sorcerer, and it's all like a light cleric or something, and it's all based around like fire damage. I could see the wild magic barbarian working in a party like that if that's the aim that you're going for. I think that could be really cool. But yeah, I think in your sort of generic scattered party, it would seem like a weird choice, this weird outlier where, kind of like what you were saying, it's just this disconnect.
I just looked. It's a D8 of choices.
That's even worse.
Yeah, like I said, I get why it has to be limited, because obviously you don't want to be like, you rage a lot. You can rage like multiple times per combat, right, and all that, and you don't particularly want one of your main tanks to be suddenly like, oh yeah, he just disappears, great, or like, oh yeah, he's now an idiot, like he's now like can't do anything, he's paralyzed. You know what I mean? Or it's like, oh, he's unconscious now just because you raged. But
I think another facet of the reason that the wild magic barbarian is so limited in the effects that happen is because they're not explicitly meaning to channel magic, whereas the sorcerer is very much, I am using chaos magic. So I think that those options do kind of open up, and that makes sense in that sense. But yeah, I think if you're looking for that randomness, it's not the subclass to go for.
It makes sense, but I hate it. Okay.
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to. Is it's a personal opinion. Obviously, like it probably is good, and I've just like misread it or whatever. But when I've read it, and from my understanding of it, when I look at it, I think it sucks. I hate it. Angry reacts only. Stupid, dumb, grr.
Well, okay, so like if we go by like what I said about a themed class, yes, barbarians, like you said, Denny, don't really channel magic. But okay, here's just a pitch I thought up in 4 seconds. So
great.
Pardon me if it's derivative and terrible. I'm preparing a game for some high school friends, and we did this collaborative world building exercise where everyone kind of contributed pieces of the lore that they wanted to see happen in this world. And one of the really cool, exciting bits that has actually become one of the main cruxes of the campaign is that there's a section of the world that is like cut off from the rest of it, both physically but also through like time and space. It's this weird Doctor Who dimension where if you step into this like canyon, you could be suddenly in the Nine Hells, or you could be in the same place but 3,000 years ago. And so I imagine it as like the weave ripped here, and it's just chaos magic. So if one of them chooses to play a wild magic sorcerer, we just say that like maybe they were born there, or they went into the rift, and when they came out, that's what they were. So through the same thinking, if you were already like a physical level 0 barbarian, like you were the fit guy in the village, and you went into this rift, you might come out as a wild magic barbarian. So your focus is still on fighting, but you've just got that sort of bubbling, crackling weirdness inside of you that you can't quite explain. And so it's almost like, it's like, I didn't want the subclass, but it happened.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, like I said, I think as a from like an RP point of view, it seems like really good. You can do a lot with it. Just mechanically, I don't like it.
Well, yeah, the same reason I don't like the Battle Rager.
Yeah,
that's fair. I'm going to skim over this one. 5th level, you get extra attack, pretty straightforward, as well as fast movement, so you get an extra 10 feet of movement.
Which I love that.
Love it.
Because it's easier to hit things where you can get right up into their face, and most other enemies, I mean, flying it, whatever, most humanoid enemies probably have a speed of 30, so you're always going to be able to catch up to them.
And my DM always makes sure every combat is about 50 feet away.
Yep.
I'm like, motherfucker.
See, I feel like I'm lucky because a lot of the combats we start began as like talking sessions that went horribly, horribly wrong. So we were already face to face with the guy.
I know. A lot of ours was like, we're trying to find this bad guy who's been waiting for us just in a fucking big tower. It's just like, so you've arrived. It's just 50 feet away. I'm like,
7th level, you get Feral Instinct, which is nice. You get advantage on initiative, and if you're surprised at the start of combat, you can act normally as long as you rage before doing anything else, which you were going to. Admit it.
Now, I like this one because the barbarian that I play, I took the, what's it called? The Prodigy feat in order to get expertise in athletics because I wanted to do a lot of grappling. And because the grappler feat is trash, I went with that instead. And so that coupled with I happen to have a magic axe that like on a crit allows me to just automatically knock people prone and stuff like that. So in my fighting, I do a lot of damage, but I often am either trying to knock people down or grapple them and drag them closer to like the ranger or something, or like drag them into the moonbeam if there's a moonbeam set up. So I like playing battlefield control with the barbarian. And so advantage on initiative is great because the earlier you can go, the more you can set up the battlefield for like combos from your teammates. And not being surprised is also great because if you've got, enemy rogues or snipers or stuff, you can still try and dash over to them and knock them out before they start killing your healers or anything like that. This was one of my favorites when I got level 7. I was so happy.
I mean, I'm like advantage is so good, especially when I have +0 to my initiative. It's lovely to have. It's just nice. And I mean, can't go wrong with just being able to do shit, man. It's so good.
Yeah, another downside to making a dex your dump stat there. But yeah, this kind of covers that again. 9th level, this is where we get into those heavy hits. You get brutal critical. You get to roll an additional damage die on critical hits, and you get to add another one at 13th level and yet another one at 17th level.
This is where Great Axe becomes better than a Great Sword.
Oh, yeah.
Die on this hill. Lots of people are like, no, Great Swords, because you can't roll a 1. Your lowest is 2. You're more average to the middle. On a Great Axe, it's more swingy. You could roll a 1 or a 12. A Great Axe, you're going to average out to 8 or whatever. But I'm like, no, because if you're rolling additional damage die, yeah, a Great Sword, you're rolling 2d6. But on a crit, that's only now 3d6. That's not 4d6, because it's just one extra die. But on a Great Sword, that's more 12s, baby.
I mean, I prefer Great Sword, Great Axe just for that reason, but that's just me. But yeah, 100%. Like, welcome to averages and how they change when you add more dice. Yeah, because 3d12 is better than 3d6, but 2d6 is better than 1d12.
I'll die on this hill. Great Axes are cooler.
I mean, they look cool. I'm just a Final Fantasy nerd, so I'm just like, I like the Great Swords, because Final Fantasy has bled me to think Great Swords are the greatest thing ever. They have great in their name.
At 11th level, you upgrade to Relentless Rage. So if you drop to 0 hit points while you're raging and you're not killed outright, you get to make a DC 10 con save and instead can drop to 1 hit point and stay alive. And then this gets harder to do as you keep dropping to 0, but that's great.
I love this because it's another example of a really good benefit with a nasty payoff if you're not careful. Except this one, you don't really have a choice. It's just going to happen, so just do it. But I think it's always a good idea to just do it because one extra round of fighting could probably end the battle. And it's like as soon as one person goes down, you want to avoid that death spiral, right? So suddenly everyone starts focusing on getting them up and they're not doing damage, and it can get really nasty really quick. So anything you can do to save the cleric's spell slots for, spirit guardians instead of healing word, great.
And this is another reason why barbarians would want to invest in a good con score.
Yeah, man. We have to make a DC con save of like 10, and you've got like a +9 at that point. You're probably looking at +8, +9 at that point. Like you have to roll 1, 2, or 3.
I'm looking at my sheet. I've got a +10, but then again, I do have the ring of protection, so that's not fair.
I have a +8 with a 16 Constitution.
Of course, it also means whenever you do fail, it's really dramatic and really annoying.
Yeah, it's always a time where you're thinking, just one more, come on, I can just stay up, and it's like, there's the one that's been plaguing me this entire time, that's been rearing its head.
The thing I do like about high con saves on a barbarian is everything that is a con save makes sense for the barbarian to be good at avoiding, like exhaustion, being slowed, like cold damage, things like that. It really speaks to like, I am so fit and buff that I can just shrug off natural disasters. That's not, you know what I mean.
The natural elements are nothing to me if I am Mr. Muscle.
Exactly.
The 15th level ability, Persistent Rage. This is great because like when you start raging at level 1, you have to attack something hostile or receive damage in order to keep the rage going. But with this, you could just, as long as you're conscious, you can be raging until you want to end it.
See, and this is a weird one for me, and I think it's just because the nature of games I'm used to playing. I think this speaks to 5th edition's problem of the 5-minute adventuring day, where there's like 1 or 2 fights and then we're done. Whereas, the DMG suggests 6 to 8 medium encounters, which I don't know a single DM that does that, because that's a lot of fighting per adventuring day. That's a lot of like, okay, and then these random idiots attack you, and then these random idiots attack you. Like unless you're playing, maybe it's in the modules. I haven't run any modules, but for me, if I'm creating my own content, I struggle to fit 6 to 8 meaningful resource draining encounters in a single day without it feeling very rushed and very not well thought out. So for me, for a barbarian, by 15th level, by the time you're getting this ability, yeah, it's great, but you've also got 5 rages. And I don't think, there's very rare occasions where I've fought more than 5 times in a day. So if I have to pop rage twice in one battle, it doesn't really hurt me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, that's my experience.
I mean, yeah, same. Like, I think the most rages I've used in one, I think I've used all 5 of my rages in one day, but it was like, we're talking like the end game fights of this campaign. So like, of course, it's all happening at once. So it is like a back-to-back fight. But like throughout the entire campaign, maybe like one other time where we were just like, we gotta fucking go. We don't have time to rest. We don't have we just gotta go, and just got unlucky with the social encounter type thing. And
there could be an argument for it, because there are times, I'm thinking specifically of an adventure that we went on where we were going through the sewers. We were trying to track down like the head of the Thieves Guild, because we had a task to kill him because someone else wanted to take over the Thieves Guild, and we knew that he was like a very deadly target. We had encountered him like 3 or 4 times before, and he had always beat the shit out of us. So this was like, this was a boss, and I knew that kind of like, okay, there's going to be a big fight at the end. I know, because we're going to eventually face him. But I was actually enjoying popping a couple rages purely for like environmental reasons. Like, okay, we're in this sewer. There's a dead end, but there's a pipe above us that we could squeeze through. We got to get up to it. So I was like, I'm going to rage just to be stronger, like to get that advantage on my strength check so that I can just fucking muscle up to the thing and then help everybody else up. So I guess by 15th level, it's cool if I know that I'm not going to be wasting rages recasting them in combat. Maybe I'm more willing to burn them on out of combat stuff just to get that strength and con boost.
Yeah, I mean, could you also imagine like the moment where you're like, there is a giant cliff and the place you need to go is at the bottom. I rage and leap off the cliff.
Actually, I have done that. We were saving, there was a school that was on fire, and we had evacuated everyone except for this tiny little tiefling girl that was like up at the top screaming for help. So I was just like, fuck it. And I'm just like running through the flames. I grabbed her in a bear hug. I raged. And then I just like fell out of the window and broke her fall like with my body. And I was just like, I don't even care if I die. I need to save this person. And so the rage like helped me not to die.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. Like it does add like more situations where you can use it.
You can be that like superhero kind of.
18th level, we get Indomitable Might. If a strength check is less than your strength ability score, use your strength ability score instead. This
funny. Is called No Door Shall Stop Me.
It's just like the fucking rogue one as well. Like I think every class is like very similar.
Reliable talent.
Yeah.
If they've got reliable talent in their lockpicking and the barbarian has Indomitable Might, the DM might as well just be like, okay, forget, there's no locks on doors ever, because what's the point?
There's not a lock, however, it's trapped to shit, dickhead. It's like, you break in the door, however, spikes.
Difference here, though. Rogue gets reliable talent at 11th level. This is 7 levels later.
I feel like at this point, 18th level, like what strength checks are you doing? Because it's going to be a strength saving throw, right? And the only real like skill check is athletics. Like you're not doing, I think it's kind of, I just think 18th is too late, but I don't know what would go in its place.
Well, I think I would argue it's not that 18th is too late. I think it's that 11th for rogues is
too early.
Right.
And that's, I think, just because they want the rogues to be the skill monkeys, right?
True.
So they get really cool skill stuff early on.
Yeah.
Because rogues rely on skills more than the barbarians do.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that's fair.
I think this is built to make you a better grappler and to make you better at like environmental
exploration.
Exploration hazards like that.
I guess at 18th as well, you tend to get more like lair actions, right? A lot more common, and a lot of those lair actions probably tend to be strength checks. I guess like a lot of them are push effects, or can you hold on to this while this like is moving about?
Mm-hmm. And I know for my game, we run using 4th edition's skill challenges a lot. Anytime we're doing exploration, it's a skill challenge. Anytime we're chasing a bad guy down or being chased by a bad guy, it's a skill challenge. There's times where like we were on a boat that was full of gunpowder that was about to explode, but we were still trying to shoot the crossbows at the people at the other boat. So that was a skill challenge. And so we do a lot of skill checks in my game. So anything that improves my skill checks, I'm happy with.
Yeah, I love skill challenges. That was the best thing to come out of 4th edition. The 20th level ability for Barbarians, the capstone ability. And this is simple, but I really like this. It's called Primal Champion, and your strength and constitution both go up by 4 to a maximum of 24.
This is the I bench press the mountain.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I mean, at level 20, you're like at god status, right? You are supposed to be at this sort of like almost deity level of fucking strength and or like power. It just makes sense to you just get +4.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, you're basically like a stone giant or a cloud giant in terms of strength now. I love this because it's very rare to get something that boosts your ability above 20. I can't think of any other ability just in the player's handbook that does that. Off the top of my head, you'd have to go into the DMG and start looking at your like manual of whatever the hell it's called, like the ones that increase.
Yeah,
but those are rare legendary magic items that you might only get one of in a campaign, if at all.
I'm now trying to think if there's anything. I don't think so. If there is, it's some weird like.
Yeah, there might be a few in subclasses
Classes.
in other books I'm not thinking of, but in terms of like the player's handbook, the basic free rules, like. I think this is it, which is really cool.
Yeah, I'm sure there's another class that gets like that exceed the normal ability score, but I can't think of what it is. I know like druids, like they get 20th level wild shape all you want and you basically don't age. Like this feels on par with that. Like you have obtained like godly physique or godly version of what your powers are. And in this case, it's just you're super buff.
And think about pairing that with the 18th level thing. If you roll less than a 24, just take 24. Holy crap! That's you get the wizard to cast enlarge on the 20th level barbarian and watch them just arm wrestle giants all day.
Amazing. You get the stories of Heracles at this point.
Exactly.
Well, those are the 20 levels of barbarian, and the barbarians share a lot of features in common. So I feel like the subclasses don't add too much in comparison to all these features that you just get for being a barbarian in general. But we're going to take a break at this point, and when we come back, we're going to be talking about the roleplay aspects of barbarian characters. So stay tuned. Hi there. Do you have a podcast you'd like to promote? How about sponsoring an episode of the Speak Dicely podcast? If you'd like to get in touch with me about including an ad during one of our episodes, contact Denny at dicelychannel@gmail.com. Now, back to the podcast. Hello, everybody. Welcome back from break. We're now going into conversations about how to roleplay and build interesting barbarian characters. So how do you guys go about making barbarian characters interesting?
I tend to look at see what maybe made them rage for the first time. Is kind of what I look at. Is like if there is for some, maybe it might just be like a natural thing. But I look see, okay, so why are they raging? So what like it's almost like a weird. You can do it this like different other ways, but I look at it as almost like what's like a traumatic event that like led them to get so angry that they kind of like lost it. So my guy's one is like he saw the village he was in got raided and his brother was killed by a goblin in front of him. And like as that happened, he just snapped and he just like tore through, like had that like blinded rage moment. And his entire like building arc was him trying to control his rage. So he like exiled himself because he didn't want to hurt anyone anymore, and was also exiled just because people like, you can't fucking do that again, lad. Like, get out. And it was about him just like learning to control what this power is inside him and seeing like, so now when he rages, it's not like just a random act of like, I'm angry. It's this like, we say almost like that injects himself and he just kind of buffs himself up and just gets into like, it's almost that like sports zone, you know, people like get into the zone. They're so just like so focused on this like act, and they're so like at their peak physical performance, they're just like, right, I got nothing else, so I'm just focused as one thing. I'm gonna do it. That's kind of how I built him up to be. I mean, that's how I think. I think that's like the main thing is seeing like why does this person really, like, what gets them into this rage? Or you can have like a happy rage. I see some people they've got so happy that they've just been they're so excited about something.
That's usually how mine are. It's just like I'm having so much fun killing shit.
Yeah, it's that like I'm so happy. It's what I like looking at, what gets them going. Like not in that way, but like what gets them into this state of mind, and then why do they fight as well? Like, are they looking to protect a family? Are they looking for like justice? What keeps them fighting? Or is it just they find it? Do they just find it fun? Do they just find fucking killing shit and being this strong dude just fun? So they keep on doing it.
Yeah, I don't know. For me, this is almost a loaded question. Because and you might recall this from the last time I was on the podcast about how I build characters. I don't really marry the mechanics and the character concept too closely at first. So for me, creating an interesting barbarian character, the question is actually, how do I create an interesting character? Because I'll think of like, I want this person to be like this, and then I'll go, okay, barbarian, sure. Because to me, like your class features are not as inherently tied to your identity. It's more of just, these are the things you're good at doing. But anybody can be good at doing those things, right? They don't have to be the tribal warrior with the traumatic past or whatever. I mean, my guy also has a traumatic past, but I mean, that's most D&D characters do. So for me, it was more, I mean, when I picked Barbarian, I had never actually played D&D before. That's how long I've been playing this freaking character. So I thought, okay, this class seems easy and not very complex. I'll start with that, because maybe I won't even like this game. LOL. So yeah, that's why I went with that. At first, I had been considering fighter, and then I thought, well, Barbarian seems like a little more streamlined. I'll just go with that. And then, as an actor coming from that background, I was like, my choices in game, the way I play this character, I don't really think are going to be informed by what it can do, other than this person's very strong and knows that they're very strong. So they're more likely to rush into danger or take the more complicated route. Yeah, so for me, I mean, like, what's interesting about my character to me is that he doesn't really, I mean, I would say most characters aren't aware of classes, except for maybe, like we said before, like Paladin, Monk, maybe Wizard, because they know that they studied for years and years and years. But to me, I always like characters that don't really know that they are a class. They just know they're good at doing stuff. So he doesn't know he's a barbarian. He is someone who's very good at fighting in a very raw, untrained way. And they have this kind of paladin-y mentality about them where it's all about he wants to honor his family because he is the last. The rest of his family is dead, so he has to pay honor to them. And he is from a society that very much has like a bit of ancestor worship kind of stuff going on. It's this kind of like, if your great grandfather was a powerful hero, then it is your destiny to also be a powerful hero. So in order to honor their memory, you have to go out and seek glory and help people and just be the best you can be. And so from there, I started extrapolating like, okay, that kind of feels like a very like heroic champion kind of thing. And then at first I was thinking like champion fighter. But then, yeah, I ended up going with Barbarian, and it never really clicked until I got Xanathar and read Ancestral Guardian. I was like, holy crap, this is him. This is exactly him, because it's all about. And so literally, like, when I rage, the spirit of my grandfather shows up and we like fight side by side, because he was also a great and powerful hero,
That is really cool. I'm glad you brought it up, like a different philosophy of character building again, because you're right. A lot of the building I do is like, I've played so many characters. I'm like, what class do I want to play next time? And then once I choose that, I'm like, all right, I'll make a story based on what mechanics I know they're going to have and go that way. But yeah, and stripping the title away of the class, that's a great idea. Folks, if you haven't done that yet, try that. Like, don't identify as the class. You are just the way you are.
But also, if you try it and don't like it, like that's fine. Not everybody is an actor. And even people that are actors maybe don't want to play like that because they're so used to doing that in their day job. But yeah, to me, like, because I'm so used to creating characters that don't have a class identity, they're just like, here's a person, and all I have to go by is what's on the page. I tend not to lock myself into artistic choices based on, what dice I'm rolling and what numbers I'm adding to them.
It depends on the character as well, because some characters, straight away I have like an idea for a character, and I spend ages trying to find a class that I either want to play this character or that fits and makes sense. I'm just there like, fucking, does this work? I guess by really I get married to this concept. I'm like, but then I can't do that as well in this one, so I guess I'll change class. Or sometimes I'm like, I want to play a rogue. Okay, how do I make a rogue? I'm like, I want to play this subclass in particular. How do I do that? Like, what do I want to make a story beat that makes sense? So that I'm very scatterbrained when it comes to character creation. So I like trying to find a point, and then I work from there. That point can be, the class, the character. It can be just like a weird backstory bit. It can be like, I think I've got married to a name before. I was like, what does this name work with? And it's like, I'm like,
yeah, to me, names are everything. Names are usually the first thing I come up with.
Names are either the first or the last.
And here's an interesting thought of how much I think maybe I tie race choices to character, where I go, I want to play a Dragonborn. Now, how do I? So for me, when I was building the Barbarian, I liked the idea of it being a human because the story that I had in mind, like I said, about this hero that goes off on an epic quest because of things that happened in the long forgotten past, is very much that sort of like Greek Hercules kind of vibe. And I liked the idea that it was a human in a world of long-lived, powerful races, like dwarves that are very strong and live for hundreds of years, elves that are magical and live for hundreds of years, Dragonborn that fucking breathe fire, and yet here's humans who are like, I have 2 legs and no tail and round ears and no sharp teeth, and like could be seen as kind of boring. And I like the idea of, to this character, that's just yet another challenge that he is determined to overcome. He is determined to prove himself a hero amidst all these other creatures that are in some way like more advanced than him, just given their civilizations or the way they're born or their biology. It's just one more hurdle for him.
In terms of how I would approach building a barbarian character, well, firstly, I should start with the Xanathar's Guide, and I'm not incredibly impressed by what they've offered, because again, it's again this very limiting suggestions, like a personal totem, tattoos, and superstitions. It's very much just, you are a tribesman, and it's like, okay, well, they couldn't get creative enough with the barbarian class to really offer.
Well, and I think it's that, but it's also like, why are only barbarians able to have tattoos and superstitions and personal totems?
Yeah.
Why can't the wizard have a cool tattoo or a
wizard with
personal
superstition.
totem? Like,
a wizard
why?
with a superstition just fucking has to like walk through doors in a certain way every time.
Yeah, like if that
like,
stuff works for you, great. Use that. Like, have a cleric with a weird superstition.
Yeah,
why not?
These suggestions are almost like general character ideas.
Yeah. And I think like my advice, if you're looking through the Xanathar's Guide stuff, there's some really good stuff, but I would look through all of it. Don't just look through whatever class you're playing. Like, like in the wizard stuff, they're like, what school did you go? What did you study? What were things that happened to you in your classes? Like, why can't the cleric also, like, when they were in religion school, like pull inspiration from other places?
Yeah, absolutely. And we did bring this up, but it all comes back to the barbarian rage. So things I would ask as I'm building a character in the way that I have often done it recently is consider how the rage manifests. Like we've already said, does it have to be anger? Why not calm, serenity? Like in Avatar: The Last Airbender, the Avatar, or Aang, has like the Avatar state where he goes white glowy eyed and the arrow on his head glows up. I'm like, that could inspire me to be my character's rage. And it seems all 3 of us have played Ancestor Barbarians, which I think is hilarious. And that's kind of what I did
tank
for my guy.
in 5th edition.
Literally, they're just fun. Okay, as well, like, they're just the cool flavor as well. All right, it's just cool. It's fun and cool.
It's cool to fight alongside ghosts.
Yeah, all right. I can see my dad. That's my dad. He's fine with
Okay.
me.
He helps me.
He helps me.
See, now my rage manifests as like the spirit of my grandfather, and there are several other people whose souls we have saved throughout the journey that were sort of like his adventuring party, like 100 years ago. So every time we save one of their souls, I get one more spirit that shows up when I rage.
Oh, that's
and
cool.
the way we flavored it is they all live inside my axe, so they like when I'm not using them. But of course, it's not necessarily tied to a weapon. It just happens when you rage. But so for me, it's almost like I've said before, it's not an anger thing. It's more of like an adrenaline rush. But it's more specifically, it's like I'm calling on his spirits to show up and help me. But that takes a bit of my energy to manifest them because they are dead spirits. They can't just wander willy-nilly. So it actually is taking a part of like my psyche and my energy to bring them into the material world. And I can only do that a couple times a day before I get real tired.
Yeah. The only other 2 points I had, Koiba really covered them. It's like,
You're welcome.
do you try and fight against your rage, or do you lean into it? And you said your character tried to not want to hurt anybody anymore. So that's like, yeah, you figured that out. And what is it that makes you tap into those emotions that send you into your rage? And the last one I have to bring up is, how does your barbarian hold up in other situations other than combat? Like, how are they useful, or what are they specialized in aside from combat?
I mean, the great intimidation, if you use certain home rules, like where you can use your strength to intimidate, which I think
more DMs need to do.
Which I think you should do with not just your barbarian. I think you should do with every.
It's not even an optional rule.
Yeah.
It's a thing. It's why they write strength brackets athletics.
Yeah,
and not athletics bracket strength.
Yeah, you should be able
That's
to like
a whole nother rant.
You slamming your hands on the table. It's not like you being carried. It's not you being like your presence. It's the fact you just fucking like slam something on the table that's gonna shock people.
Yeah. That's a great example. I also love the example of a wizard using their intelligence to like trick someone, like they can be intelligence deception. But actually, like my favorite example of that is a rogue or any other class that's got good charisma doing charisma stealth.
Yep.
You're in a crowded room or like a busy street, and you're using your social abilities to just make yourself invisible. No, you won't see me. I'm just another face, I love that.
Yeah.
I think as well, barbarian. Most of the time, you like 9 times out of 10, I'll say it's probably a low intelligence character. You tend to have that as your dump, so you're usually like you're not going to be the brains. You're not going to be really having intelligent conversation. But sometimes that's like a good almost icebreaker that you have this kind of like very simplistic view of the world and very simplistic like. Well, why can't we just do A to B? Because they don't understand like the deep politics of a nation. They're like, well, let's just go fucking kill the guy. And they're like, excellent point. It's that like, it's good to be like, oh yeah, why can't we just do this? Like they have this simple idea that most people will overlook, which I think is quite good.
I run a game where he's not a barbarian, he's a fighter, but it's very much the same, where he plays him very stupidly. But he's often the first person they send in to talk to people because he's just... Sometimes people love to talk to a dummy because it's kind of endearing, and he'll butter people up, and then the druid will come in and start messing with their brain or whatever.
I think also the barbarian tends to be like the comic relief as well. If you don't have like, for example, like sometimes you usually think like the bard's probably going to be a comic relief as well. But I think the barbarian very much in that social, because they tend to be dumber, dumb equal funny to a lot of people, because it is that like channeling in that inner child. You are there to just be like, obviously not all barbarians, obviously. I played a semi-intelligent barbarian and I played them kind of dumb, but that's whatever. But you can have them and they can be like a master tactician, for example, because they just understand the world and that gives you that intelligence or whatever. But I think in the social shoot, you tend to be that like, we're going to drink a lot and we're going to do, you're like great at fighting shit, but you're also good at that stress relief where there's high tension. You can do something, especially if you have played a low intelligence character. I think you can do a lot to just relieve tension just by existing and doing something silly. By being like, yeah, drinking game.
I tend to play my guy because he's got like this sort of middling intelligence, middling wisdom. He's actually got decent charisma. So it sort of fits with the kind of himbo aesthetic of like, he's jacked and attractive, but he doesn't really know how to talk to people. He tries his best. He's maybe not the most like socially aware. We have a running gag in the game where anytime we're in like a new town or we're like in a tavern we've never been before, there's always someone flirting with my character, and I just have no idea how to react to it. It's just like, God, she keeps touching my arm. That's weird. And the rest of the party will be like, she likes you. And I'm like, what? No, she doesn't. Shut up. And so
Isn't that nice? She picked up the bar tab for him. Oh, that's so nice of her.
yeah, exactly. So I don't know. Like I don't play him as like, me so dumb, but I play him as doesn't really read a lot of books, knows how to read, but just doesn't, reading's for nerds. And so if we're fighting a dragon, he'll be like, yeah, dragons breathe fire and they're strong, but he doesn't really know anything beyond that. He might not know that they're resistant to things. Or if we're fighting like a mind flare, he'll be like, I got no idea what the fuck this thing is, but it's ugly and I'm going to kill it. Which is actually kind of fun for me as someone who also DMs very regularly, who actually does know everything about these monsters, to play ignorant and to force myself not to metagame their resistances or their vulnerabilities. He was actually quite useful in social situations. He had a 14 charisma, which was much better than everyone else in the party because we were all like rangers and clerics and rogues. And it wasn't until actually just a couple weeks ago we've had a friend join the group who's playing a bard. So now finally Mirgan's taking a bit of a back seat and he's like, all right, someone else do the talking. I'll just threaten people.
Actually, this is a good segue. Can you guys tell us a bit about a barbarian character you've played? And by the sounds of, I usually would ask what archetype you pick, but by the sounds of it, we've all picked ancestral barbarians.
We all picked the best one.
Yeah, best one. So I have a blue-skinned dragonborn barbarian named Nicole Sparkbolt because fucking think of a last name to do with electricity and being in like a tribe is hard. I've been playing him for like 2 years. We just finished the campaign, got to level 16, 13 levels in Barbarian, 3 levels in Paladin, because, you know, that's how it be. I love the multi-class. We was never going to multi-class this guy. And RP came about and went, hey, Paladin. I was like, okay. Yeah, she's really strong. Really like 18 strength, though, low dex, though, was designed to be just this big kind of idiot. Middling intelligence, middling wisdom, because of the originally had low charisma and low originally just had low charisma, but because of the paladin, we buffed it to a 16. It was originally my biggest dump stat was charisma for this guy. So he didn't like talk to anyone. He was just like this big fucking idiot, but like has become more charismatic to people now. He has a god attached to him, and now people have seen he's a bit more servitude to God, has a bit of a friendly appearance rather than being this big boy. But yeah, like the adventures he's been on, like opening up a door that you needed blood to open. He had a blood vial in his pocket, but he fucking forgot, so I stabbed it with my hand instead of pouring the blood vial.
I've done the same thing, or at least had the same door.
Yeah, where it's just like, yeah, you pour like a found blood vial. I'm like, I'll keep that for later. You just need blood to activate. Fucking hand on the spike.
Yeah, we just stabbed a rat and smeared it on the door.
Oh no, I didn't do that. I stabbed my own hand. Fucking fuck it, right? Yeah, I mean, this guy, the choice to my class to paladin was because of an item that like let me talk to a god for a while, and it got to a point where like he was really chill and cool in the RP I had with him, and I was like, oh man, I guess I'll go paladin. So I got that to level 3. I mean, like, it was just, I tried my best. I really kind of want to go warlock with it, but I was like, it just doesn't make sense. But paladin is so fucking good with barbarian, and I hate that. Yeah, it's so fucking good with multi-class, because nothing quite like getting a brutal critical and then just pumping divine smite into it. And it's just like, you crit, brutal critical on it, then like the weapon I had, the DM made a homebrew like legendary weapon for us, kind of, you know, like artifacts of whatever, like big old things. So this had it's a great club that did, you had to use an action to activate it, and then for a minute you got an extra 2d8 damage on it.
It's pretty powerful.
On a crit I was doing like 8d8 damage or something stupid. It was, and then like how we did it, we just doubled like the numbers you rolled on the dice. So like, yeah, like, and then with the paladin ability as well, all the damage dice that were like 1 or 2s from like my main weapon, I could re-roll. So I was like most of the time getting like a 3+. I think my average damage on a crit was like in the 60s. Oof. It was fucking insane. I did like the most I did is 111 at that point, and yeah, fucking there was nothing quite like having a turn where I killed we're facing like two baddies at the same time, like these big bads who are like the generals type level in this army, and I fucking killed them on the same turn because I just did like 2 crits. So I was like, it's reckless attack came in handy. Just fucking got the 2 nat 20s and went, cool, I'm pumping everything into these 2 attacks. It's like smite hits that one, goes that one, okay, smite hits that one. He was, man, the cool Sparkbolt was my big blue boy. Got nicknamed the Big Blue Billy by a gnome who he stole a book from. They tried to pay for, but no one's having it because he was just obsessed with his books. And then he got named the Big Blue Billy across this entire city. And our bard made a story called the Big Blue Billy. So everyone knows him as that. It's the fucking worst, but I love him. And I'm so sad that it's over for him now. And he's retired, sort of. He runs a guild now, but one shots later down the line, I think we'll be playing some. We're going back to these characters. But yeah, 2-year campaign ended like last month. It's sad. I miss D&D. I haven't played D&D for like a month. I miss it so much. But yeah, that's my boy.
What about you, Jesse?
Yeah, so also an ancestral guardian because, again, they're the best.
Yep.
Yeah, his name is Mirgan Snowback because I like double syllable last names for some reason. Every character I do is like that. I don't know. Yeah, he kind of started out as this, don't want to say generic, but I was sort of like, yeah, he's a Nord from Skyrim. He's got blonde hair and a big axe, and he comes from a Viking sort of culture place. But, over time, he's slowly evolved and specified and become a little less derivative. But I think, like I've explained a bit about what his story is and like following in the path of his grandfather. And to me, it goes back to that. If I love the story that I'm telling, it's like I don't really care. Not that I don't care, but it could be any class. It could be any sort of character as long as I really love the story that I'm telling. And at this point, he's so involved in the events of the world, and he's had a hand along with the rest of the party in so many city-shaking and world-shaking events that, like his backstory is just such a small microcosm of the whole world at this point. And I think that's just one of the great things about D&D is it can evolve like that. So yeah, he's a human. He's got like white blonde hair. And incredibly jacked, stupid handsome, not the most socially aware, carries a big honkin' axe that's covered in like brass spikes, and that's like his ancestral weapon that belonged to his grandfather. His whole deal is he wants to protect his city, but at the same time, it's interesting to play with the different moral choices that are coming to him, because at first I played him almost paladin-like, where he had this code and he stuck by it. But, over the events of the game, things have forced him to reevaluate where he was and his different decisions. So, we killed that head of the Thieves Guild, and in doing so, kind of allied ourselves with the person who hired us to do it, who is now the new head of the guild. So what started out as a guild of a bunch of our enemies, we kind of work with them, and they want to set up... they want to set stuff up in my home city because it's the only city they don't have a presence in. And I'm sort of like, well, do I want to let a bunch of like criminals into my city? So I had to be like, okay, I do, because I feel like I want to keep this relationship amicable because you are a powerful, rogue sorcerer NPC and I want you on my side. But at the same time, like it's almost like The Godfather. It was sort of like nothing in the schools. I don't want murders on the city streets. If you got bad business, you take it outside the walls. You can do gambling in strip clubs. That's fine. Those are like victimless crimes, but don't be stealing from the poor shopkeepers. Don't be raiding people's houses. Like just keep it kind of clean. And so it's really forced him to step back and reevaluate. Like he went from lawful good to like, I don't know, neutral good now or something. Because it's like, I've had to do some bad shit. We had to make a deal with a demon in order to save a child's life. And it almost forced all of us to take a level in a warlock subclass. But yeah, it's really interesting to me letting the events of the world kind of shape the story of this character rather than having a very set idea of the character first and then just kind of bullhorning my way through events always the same way. Which is part of the reason why, as much as I want to play a paladin mechanics-wise, having to stick to an oath, I'm like, yeah, but what if their character changes? What if they no longer agree with the oath? Do I just become an oath breaker? That would be cool, but a DM might not want to do that,
Well, you got to find a DM that doesn't care about the oath being an oath, and it's just like these are the mechanics. There you go.
That's literally what I had like with my guy. I never thought it was gonna be multi-classing. 100%, like never. It was from the start. I was like barbarian way through. Everyone else in my party was starting to multi-class. I'm like, nope, I'm being a barbarian. I'm not gonna do it. And like, unless because RP says that like there's a chance to, then yeah. But I'm not going to go out and say, level 5 or level 10. I'm gonna have multi-class. And it just came.
I
up,
actually
like,
multi-classed my guy at first into a couple dips of fighter.
Yeah,
but
let's go.
It was like more as I was reading the high level stuff, I was like, I really want that 24 strength, and I just ended up saying to my DM like, I mean the fighter abilities are cool, but I think I want to just stick to full barbarian, so we ended up dumping them.
Yeah, I mean the panda stuff I only got to level 3 because that's when you got like the oath. I made like the oath of the Watcher or whatever it was. And then I was like, cool, I think that's probably as far as he's going to get. He's going to make the oath, and I think he's probably just going to be a barbarian for the rest of it. Maybe, like,
But again the cool thing about 5th edition class design is they're very front-loaded, so you get a lot of stuff for very little investment.
Yeah, I say, well, like, if anything ever comes up, if his god one day goes, hey, I've got, like, a fucking holy quest for you, then when you're needed to protect the realm, he'd be like, cool. He'll probably start taking more levels than Paladin, if that, like, his bond with the god gets to that point. But his bond with the god currently, he's like, cool, I'm happy with what this is. We know where we sit with each other. Cool. See you on the other side.
I have not been incredibly invested in barbarians. Like, I played an ancestral barbarian, but it wasn't for a very long stretch. I don't even remember my guy's name. That's how not committed to him I was. Like, he was
Nobody McNoface.
Yeah.
Big McLarge huge.
I kind of modeled him after like Alucard from the Castlevania anime series. So he was this like very sleek, like rapier wielding debonair barbarian, ancestral barbarian. And he was an air ganassi born to human parents. So there was a bit of a how, and instead of ancestors per se, it was more like air elementals that fought cool. with him. So it was this very elemental feeling barbarian. And then there was another guy, I don't remember his name either. Nope. It was Bearkiss. That was his name. And he was an Eladrin. I don't remember what subclass, but he was an Eladrin barbarian. And we changed the flavor of the race to be that he had been genetically experimented on so he could swap through his seasons per day. But when he raged, he always became a summer Eladrin. So he went like supersonic. He went gold and got the summer Eladrin features.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's dope as fuck.
Yeah. But I made him an intelligence dump barbarian, and he died in an encounter with a mind flayer and intellect devours. So That's how the cookie crumbles.
That's the problem with like everyone except the wizard dumps intelligence because there's like 4 intelligence saves in the game, but those 4 intelligence saves are fucking brutal.
Yeah,
like mind flayer just eats your brain and you're done. Okay, roll a new one.
What's the brain on legs?
Yeah, the intellect
devour.
Yeah, that's what did me in. It was just I walked into a room, suddenly my brain is gone, and I've got a monster in my head. Roll new character.
Baldur's Gate 3.
Oh boy. Well, let's kind of begin heading up to the end here. So, why should people play a barbarian? And do you have any critiques about the class?
Why should people play a barbarian? It's just fun. I think at the end of the day, I'm not gonna say basic, but for the point of I can't think of a better word at the moment. It's a basic class in its core. You're there, you're the tank or the main DPS. You're there to deal damage or soak up damage. And that's really fun. Like sometimes in D&D, it can get overcomplicated and it could be like, I've got these 13 spells to use and like 10 spell slots. What do I do here? As a barbarian, you're going in there, you're raging and you're hitting the fucking thing. And it's so satisfying when it pulls off and you've just done a fuck ton of damage to them. They've got angry, hit you back and done like 3. And you've just done like 30 to them. I don't think there's anything better than like also just running in, fucking decking someone and being like, what are you going to do about it? And they've got like no reply. It's just fun. I think critique-wise, I think some of the subclasses could be a bit better. Honestly, as we said, there's some real stinkers in the subclass. I think it can be expanded a bit more. I think barbarians are very much pigeonholed a little bit in being that, and it would be nice to see something more. I don't know what. I don't design D&D. It's not my job to. That could be for someone else to decide. But I think it's just fun. If you want to have fun playing a simple class, it gets you into like learning combat, especially. It's a good way to learn D&D combat because you've got a bonus action that's kind of set. You've got an action that's kind of set. It's simple. You don't have to overthink it. Yes, it can be a bit boring and frustrating when like something can fly 10 feet or, but then you have to learn to adapt. And that's where you get throwing weapons it doesn't always have to be that way, but I think it's fun. It's just fun to hit shit hard.
Yeah, I often recommend Barbarian to people if we're playing like in a one shot or in a campaign that's only going to be like 5 or 6 sessions, because they're pretty simple to grasp. They're easy to like understand quickly, and then you have a lot of fun if you enjoy the power fantasy of, like you said, you hit hard, you shrug stuff off, and a lot of people like that. So yeah, I would recommend Barbarian if that's the kind of character you like playing. They do it the best, so go with that. And especially if you're just like doing like kind of a one and done thing, and you just want to like headlock the dragon and then rip its head off or something. I don't know. I think my biggest critique about the class is actually a lack of options for your bonus action. And I know like when 5th edition was first being designed, the bonus action was a little more closer to its name in that most things didn't have it, so a bonus action was really special and really cool. But now, these days, there's so many things you can do with your bonus action across different subclasses. And sometimes, with house rules of like drinking a potion or whatever, like, thieves get to manipulate objects as a bonus action. Sorcerers get to use bonus actions to cast certain spells. And I know that the biggest annoyance for me when I'm playing with my group is that everybody's going, okay, I move, I do this, I hit, and then with my bonus action, I do this fucking cool thing. And with me, it's like, I move, and I hit. And then my DM will always say, all right, anything for your bonus action? And I'll be like, nope. And to me, that's kind of like, eh. So, like the Berserker can attack as a bonus action, but I think a lot of people are cool on the Berserker because exhaustion is kind of an annoying mechanic. But yeah, like with base Barbarian, it's like bonus action to rage, bonus action to end it, otherwise, meh. So I would like to see more subclasses take advantage of the bonus action because it's something that the base class doesn't need to use. So it's a resource that's there. We might as well take advantage of it. I also I think in general would like to see Barbarians have a little bit more to do that isn't tied to their rage necessarily. Abilities that are just, because they're limited to 5-6 times a day for higher levels, which is great. But like just other maybe weaker abilities that you can use unlimited times or more than your rage times. I know there's a big push these days, especially with Natasha's book, to have class features that are tied to your proficiency bonus, which is really cool. And I like that because it will always increase even if you're multiclassing. I would love to see a Barbarian do that. I think, and don't quote me on this because I could be wrong because I didn't actually participate in the playtest, but I believe in the playtest before they published 5th edition that Champion was actually a Barbarian subclass, which I think is a really cool idea because a lot of the features they get are like expanded crit ranges. So you're critting on like 18 to 20. They get like bonuses to their athletics. They just get really like physically powerful things that feels very barbarian-y and less fightery to me. So I would like to see Barbarians get some of that stuff. Like maybe they don't need a feat like I do to be good at grappling. Maybe they automatically get expertise in athletics at like level, whatever. Like I think it'd be cool to see them just be able to do the things they do, but that much better and not necessarily tie it to rage.
That's fair. And I mean, I think you guys have hit all the reasons to play the class and pretty much all the critiques as well. Aside from, how flavor deficient it seems. So folks, really rack your brains on making an interesting character who enters a stage that is beyond their normal physicality. I think that's really what it boils down to. But moving forward, on a scale of 1 to 5, how would you rank Barbarians? 1, you wouldn't recommend. 2, it's a boring class. 3, it's not your first choice but can be fun. 4, you recommend the class. And 5, Barbarians are your favorite class.
Oh, this is hard for me because I want to say 5, but I don't think I can have a favorite class in D&D because I kind of love them all for different reasons. But it's like a 4.9. It's that like
non-committal favorite class.
It is my non-committal favorite class. I fucking love. Like, I think if I had to play one class forever, it'd probably be Barbarian. I think I've had so much fun. it's just fun. I think you can't. It's hard to go wrong with Barbarian. I love them. Definitely recommend everyone should try them at least once. They're my favorite class. Yeah. Fuck it. We'll say a 5.
There we go.
I'm actually a little more middle of the pack. I'm gonna say 3, and my reason for that is kind of what I was saying earlier. I think they're very fun for a one-off. If you know you're only gonna have we're gonna do this one game, so probably 3 fights. Play a Barbarian, because they'll be the most fun fights, in which case it's a 5, right? But with an extended campaign, I think, even if you're new at the beginning like I was, you might gravitate towards Barbarian because they're easy to grasp. But the more you play, I think the more, especially if you get invested in how the mechanics work, the more you're going to want stuff to do. And you're going to kind of, I think at least, there are times where I think, man, maybe I should have kept that fighter multi-class, or maybe I should have done him as a paladin. I wish I had something to do here other than just hit. So I think if I were to play a character again, Barbarian wouldn't be my first choice. But, if I end up taking it, it's always fun for me.
Yeah, I give the class a 3 as well. It's great to have in a party. I personally haven't found myself being very inspired by the class, but there is definitely a satisfaction in playing a Barbarian, for sure. Well, yeah, thank you guys. I know a whole bunch of you have been very interested in coming in and talking about Barbarians, so glad to have the 2 of you in here. And now I have a bonus question for you. In the world that you as an individual are a Barbarian, what is the thing that makes you rage? For me, it's somebody has taken the last bit of food that I prepared and I don't know who it was.
Whoever took his weed. He's not addicted to burning bush. However, we did have a druid. Our druids did make us, after we asked the barbarian, the bard, make a massive ever-growing burning bush plant that we manufacture off. So I mean, yeah, I think that kind of realistic, non-joke aside, it's probably anyone who hurts his friends, he fucking just goes, he loses it. If someone even if it's just says something that mean to them just on the street as a buzz comment, he's like, who the fuck? So it's an overbearing, very much helicopter mums. He's like, who the fuck is it? Tell me their name, where do they live, and just burns them out. It's that
I tell you, I actually raged a little while ago. I was ranting to my partner because we had just moved, and every time you move, there's always a lot of crap, right? You're throwing out old clothes, or you're minimizing, you're downgrading. So our garbage cans, because we live in a house with 3 other apartments, and we only have the one trash can outside, so our garbage cans were always filled to the top. And a couple of times we've had extra bags sitting next to the trash can. And apparently, in Toronto, you need to tag those bags or else they won't take them. And the reason I figured that out is the garbage truck, the street is right outside our bedroom door. So I got woken up by the garbage truck, and I look out the window and I watch the dude grab the can, dump it in the truck, look at my bag beside it, put the can down and leave. And I literally, I was in my underwear, I threw a house coat on, put on flip-flops, messy bed hair, and I come running outside. I'm like, what? And I grabbed the trash bag and slammed it into the garbage can, slammed the lid. I'm like, but it's right there. It's right. Just grab it. Just pick it. Just put it in now it's going to sit there for another 2 weeks, and it's going to smell, and it's going to stink. Just grab it. Why? I hate it. Why do I need to pay $5 for a piece of paper that I'm going to just attach to a bag that's going to get thrown out? That is such a waste of a tree. I don't get it. Oh, it makes me so mad.
I think we've got it.
And as a bonus action, I end my rage.
Yeah, there you go. Holy, that's funny. Well, thank you both for putting up with that little bonus question. And at this point, we're gonna move into today's game. The last time, Koiba, that you were on, actually, both of you, Jesse and Koiba, this was the game we played. However, I've decided to retire from my role of question master because I do this all the time. So, yep. And Koiba, you're going to be appointed today's question master because
my God.
Today's game is D20 questions. I believe you guys know how this game works. It's 20 questions, but it's all Dungeons and Dragons themed. Koiba, you've got a D&D something that you've prepared ahead of time?
I have indeed. I even got the page up on it in case you guys ask me fucking weird questions. I'm like, ah.
Wow.
Now remind me, do we know the category? Like, do we know ahead of time, like, what book it's from? That has to be part of our questions?
No, that
has to be part of our questions.
Oh, boy.
Hey.
Like, as far
as
as things...
This does actually tell me which book it's from. That's good. For a second, I was like, wait.
I'll keep track of number of questions just in case.
Should I have written it down what it was? Oh, fuck it.
It's fine. If you know what it is, it's whatever. Jesse and I will collaborate on asking questions, and hopefully we can figure out what this is. After the 20 questions are up, we each get a free guess to figure out what this thing is.
Is it a monster?
No.
Okay.
Is it an item?
Yes.
Okay, it's an item.
Is it in the DMG?
I believe so. Let me just double check if it is in the DMG.
That'll narrow it down.
Sorry.
No worries.
It's just I think it is. That's not fucking helpful.
Tell me what the item is, and then I'll look at the DMG for it.
Yeah. Thanks. Real helpful again. I'm gonna say yeah.
I'm gonna say
well, we'll
yes.
correct you on that once we.
Yeah, it doesn't. I can't see anything that says it's from a different book. We'll put it that way. How about that?
Okay.
I can't see anything that says it's from somewhere else.
That's funny.
So,
is it a weapon?
No.
Is it sentient?
No.
That's 5 so far.
Is it a potion?
Yes.
Oh.
Is it rare?
Why are you asking this question? Are you asking, is it a potion that has specifically the rare tag?
Because just like items, it'll be like uncommon, rare, very rare.
No, it is not rare.
It is not rare. Okay.
Holy heck, I'm realizing I have very little knowledge on potions.
I just read the DMG potions like a couple days ago because I was looking for ones to put in my game. So,
you might know if this is if this is in the DMG.
How many questions are we at right now?
That was 7.
7? All right, we got plenty of questions. Let's do.
If it's not in the DMG, I'm very sorry I've misled you.
Okay. Does it? Wait, no. Is it a healing potion?
No.
Okay.
Okay.
So we've got like potions of fly, potions of climb speed, stuff like that.
I assume. Well, I mean, it wouldn't. Asking if it'd be a buffing potion really defeats the purpose, because if it's not, it would be a poison. But there is the one potion that's like the trick healing potion. You know, I'm just gonna straight up. I'll just straight up ask: is it that healing potion that tells you it's a healing potion, but it's not? Okay, cool.
Maybe this is a way of phrasing the buff thing. Does it temporarily increase a stat?
Yes.
Okay, so like possibly strength potion something.
What other? Because I'm not aware of any other potions that increase other stats. Are there?
Well, maybe not. Okay. Is it a potion of hill giant strength?
No.
Is it a potion of frost giant strength?
Oh God, Jesse.
No.
Is it?
Wait, how many questions are we at?
That's 12. Is it one of the giant potions?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Is it a potion of stone giant strength?
No.
Is it a potion of storm giant strength?
Yes.
That's hilarious.
I only had one left, and it was fire giant. I guess cloud giant.
Oh, that is really funny.
I happen to know my giant strength potions because my barbarian is always looking for them.
DMG.
That's part of the reason I went for it as well, because I thought, I was like, what's a weird like potion? Like, what? I was like, potions are always weird. What's like a thing? And I just looked at my inventory. I'm like, oh yeah, storm giant. I was tempted to either choose the potion or the belt of like storm giant kind. I thought both would be both nice little questions.
So I guessed it. Do I get to come up with one now?
If you guys want to do another round, I know we've only got a certain amount of time, but I think we've got enough time for this and the next segment. So if you're down,
I told my other thing to just I'd be late, and they were like, sure,
okay, sounds good. You can go ahead and be the question master, Jesse.
Okay. I'm gonna flip through a random book that I have in front of me here. It's a D&D book, though. It's not like.
I've got the dictionary here.
Yes. Guess the word I'm thinking of.
Is it a noun?
That's just normal 20 questions.
Yeah, true.
That's just questions.
That is.
Yeah, welcome to questions. How are you today?
Just panics like,
Yeah.
I don't know. Yes? No?
Yeah, it has to be a yes or no
Oh, no.
answer.
Sometimes.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
I've got one.
Okay. Do you want to
Is
go
it-
first, Koiba?
Is it alive?
No.
Oh, fuck.
Okay. So, again,
No.
this
no.
keeps
No.
coming
It's
up.
not. No.
Okay. In that case, is it a class?
No.
Okay.
Is it a magical item?
No.
Is it a subclass?
No.
Is it playable by character? Is it playable? Like, used by
Yes.
characters?
Oh, but it's not alive. Huh. It's not alive. It's not a class or a subclass. It's playable by characters.
In that a character can use it.
Oh, I understand.
Yeah.
What?
Like, yeah. So, like, it's usable.
Right. Okay. It's not a magic item. Is it a piece of equipment?
No.
What the fuck is he choosing? He just looked at a random book.
I was wondering, I was like, did he choose something like barrel or something?
Oh my god, that's such a
Nah,
fucking,
I
that's such
wouldn't
a
be
fucking
that.
big brain move to pick
Yeah.
something like chair.
Yeah.
Maybe if we had Matt Mercer as the guest, I'd be like, yeah, this will fuck him up. But no.
Yeah. Ugh.
How many questions? How many got? I feel like I've used so many.
That was 6.
I don't even know what the fuck it is. I kind of like. What?
I hope I didn't fuck up and pick a category that was off limits. Or something.
Is it?
I think I did.
Is it in the
wait.
PHB?
No.
Oh.
Okay.
PMG.
Is it? Oh, it's not in the PHB. Oh, Ooh.
Can't look through my PHB anymore.
Is it? Is it like a rule or something?
No.
No, it's not a rule. Okay, but also questioningly, no.
Yeah,
Oh.
questioningly no.
Yeah, you're reading the subtext.
Yeah.
If we were playing with a computer, it'd be way harder.
True. It's alive.
No,
No,
it's
it's
not
not alive.
alive.
It's not
Fuck.
alive.
Fuck. That's where my
You
brain.
guys
it's
can
not
try and
like-
narrow down the book still. Like, PHP is only one book.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
know,
that's fair.
but
Is it in the DMG?
No.
Is it in Xanathars?
Yes.
Okay. I'll get my version
Oh.
of Xanathars. Cool, let's go, baby.
Is it a feat?
No.
Okay, that's 11, by the way.
Fucking hell. Okay. You've asked if it's a subclass or regular class, haven't you?
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
It's not a magical item. Is it a spell?
Yes.
That's great. Oh God, what's in the God?
Are we allowed to
dang-
look in the book? Is that like?
I
guess. Yeah.
I leave that up to people.
Yeah. I should have cracked my DMG for the last one.
True.
I mean, we got.
I
it
mean,
in
you got it
15.
pretty fucking.
true, yeah.
You got it pretty fucking. The second you was exposed of like strength, you're like, right, like that's where a lot of your questions came from.
Well, there's
was
only
what-
so many giant strength.
Yeah, exactly.
questions.
Like which, like,
Eventually, you'll hit it.
Yeah.
is it of 4th level or lower?
Yes.
Okay. 13.
Is
Oh,
it
God.
on the wizard spell list?
So, yes.
Okay, it's a wizard spell. Is it higher than first level?
Yes.
Okay,
Second,
so it's not a
third-
cantrip or first level.
So it's second or third
questions.
level. Second or third level wizard spell.
God, what are the spells in that damn book?
Yeah, no, that's what I'm looking at right now.
I
I
gotta
don't know, actually.
sacrifice my pride. I gotta look at the
Yeah,
book too.
no. Yeah, I just gotta see.
Do it.
I don't know enough about
I failed. Welcome to Reading Books, the
I know, right?
podcast.
you guys.
If an item does not appear in our records, it does not exist.
I think I've got a question. Is it an offensive spell?
Yes.
It is offensive.
How rude.
How many are we at now?
That's 16.
Oh boy. Oh
Yep.
boy.
Oh
Right.
boy. I don't think we're gonna get this.
Neither do I.
Ye of little faith.
Is it second or third level? Or
Is
fourth level?
is this spell associated with an element?
Yes.
Okay. An offensively elemental spell.
It hasn't narrowed down because most in the fucking Xanathars are like wind, water.
Yeah, I mean a lot
It's a
of them
bit
do
basic,
come
it's-
from like the primal evil.
How many
Stuff.
questions have we got left before we have to guess?
We've got 3 more.
3 questions and we have to guess. Fuck it. Is it a third level spell?
No.
So that must mean
4? Second or 4? No.
wait, fourth level was included in your earlier question, wasn't it?
I said 4th level or lower.
Oh shit.
Yeah, sorry. I just said
Oh
level 4.
no. Well, I think I got to ask then to help limit it at least a little bit more. Is it a 4th level spell?
No.
Second level.
Okay, so it's a second level elemental offensive spell.
How many got left? Two. I've got one question.
No,
two of the
we've got one question.
one question. Do we just
Make it the count.
Do
Do
you mind if I ask it?
You can ask it. Yeah.
Is the spell associated with the element of fire?
No.
Okay, it's not the fire spell. All right, that's the 20 questions.
So everyone
Koiba-
gets one wild guess then, I guess?
Yep. Koiba and I both get one wild guess.
Synotic Snowball Swarm.
Yes.
Ah, yeah.
Oh.
I'm partial to those because I love the spells that are like so-and-so's weird
Yeah,
something or
yeah.
other. I don't know.
Tensor's Floating Disc is a personal favorite of mine because it's kind of fucking awful.
Well done, Koiba. Oh
Ah.
gosh, that was intense.
If he said yes to fire, I would have cried because I just saw so many flame spells. I'm like, God damn it.
That would have been a harder one, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Well, thank
I-
you both for hosting that. That was a lot of
I
fun.
hate how long it took for us to ask, is it a spell?
I know. You guys were like, is it alive? Is it a class feature? I'm like, no. What the hell, man?
I don't know why I hadn't even considered
The
spells.
It's not. I don't even know what made me think spell. I just opened up a random book. I was like, fucking spell.
Well, there you go, Jesse. You made me have to open a book at this game.
No, not books. Literature,
Oh.
reading.
Yeah.
Swine, you fiend.
But I have won the opportunity to move on to our
Hey.
next question, or our next segment. It's Question Dicely, our chance to hear from the listeners. And today's question was submitted by a friend of the podcast, Adrian Chieta. You can follow him at Adrian Forever on Instagram. And his question is, D&D seems to really love powerful jewelry. What's the most OP bling there is?
I wouldn't say it's like OP, but like I like the Ring of Spell Storing.
Ooh, good choice.
I think it's
Yeah,
really
extra
cool.
spell slots is always
Extra
powerful.
spells is really good, and also like for example, you can put counterspell in it and give it to like your non-spellcaster, like one of your martial people, so they can be up front, and because they're more like going to be in range for counterspell pretty much most of the fight, they can do a counterspell. But also,
if I have a spell storing item, I always load it up with like counterspell,
dispel magic.
a featherfall, mage armor, like ones that I know I'm probably gonna cast every day. And when you think about it, like often, very rarely, at least in my experience, do you end the day totally tapped. So you usually have at least one or two spell slots that you can dump into a ring before you go to bed for the night, right?
So I think it's great using it as like a wizard or a spellcaster and giving it to someone who can't really use spells or use very minimal. I think it's nice to divvy up that. Obviously, you can use them yourself, and that's viable and it works. But if we're talking about barbarian items as well, I mean, we'd like a good belt of any giant kind.
I have two answers.
Yep.
One is going to depend on a caveat. Do ion stones count as bling? Depends on if they're gems or just fucking rocks.
Well, it's
Rocks
you know
can be
what?
bling.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I've got no problem letting them classify as bling because they technically orbit your head, which technically tiaras also orbit your head, but they're like
A crown.
on it.
Right. Ion stone of greater absorption.
Yeah.
It's like an automatic counterspell for 8th level or lower. That's fucking powerful.
Damn.
No rolling, no chance of failing the check if it's above 3rd level. Just like 8th or lower, nope.
What I assume it's a legendary item, right? Or is it?
Yeah, I know. They said OP. That's
True.
Yeah, he was just asking.
But my other answer, if we weren't going to allow Ion Stone, is actually Periaptive Wound Closure.
Oh yeah,
Because it stabilizes you,
Yeah.
which, if you're playing smart enough that you can get the bad guy away, that's kind of like effective immortality. Like you're unconscious, but you're not at risk of dying, which is pretty powerful, I think.
Good.
yeah.
I think for like its level, because it's only
I think
the
it's
ring not
actually uncommon
rare, I
or
don't
something.
think.
Yeah, Ring of Spell Storing is rare. That's why I chose the same OP.
Yeah,
I tried-
Periaptive Wound Closure is only uncommon, which I feel like
Uncommon?
it punches way above its weight for an uncommon item.
Yeah, you can get that like reasonably within the first 3 levels and not be like, oh, I got uncommon item. Like you can easily that's huge.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. The one I'm going to throw out there, I don't think it's OP, but it's a nice little shout out to Lord of the Rings. It's the Ring of Invisibility.
I mean, I think that's pretty powerful because
You don't have to attune to it,
it's
right?
not tied to the big counter to invisibility for me. Because in the game I run, pretty much all of my spellcasters have some form of invisibility. but it's always countered by, if they're going invisible, they have to keep that concentration up.
Yeah.
But with the ring, it's like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
You can concentrate on fly and be invisible.
Yeah.
That's pretty powerful, I think.
It does require attunement still,
okay.
but yeah, I mean the concentration bit, like that's huge. It is considered a legendary item, and you don't have Sauron staring at you when you put it on. So I mean, win-win.
Hey man, if you're a DM, cursed items, more of them.
Cursed legendary item.
Cursed legendary
boy.
items, yeah.
I had a lot of fun giving my fighter a berserker axe and watching him just murder the rest of his party.
Yeah, I've handed one of those out too. It was an intense session, and it required like another legendary item to break the berserking.
Yeah.
It was
he
crazy.
carried it for actually quite a while. He carried it for like probably 10 sessions, like a lot of adventures where in every fight he's making wisdom saves, and it got to the point where it was like, and he was a dwarven fighter who was very much like, let's go fight. And then he kind of became this like, I don't want to fight. I don't want to hurt my friends. And it became this whole other adventure to try and get the curse broken, and it was super cool.
That is amazing. Anything more you guys want to add to that?
Every item has a chance to be good, you know. I mean, I was given, I like cursed items, like sentient items. I like items that you can, where the item itself isn't the main focus sometimes, and it's like the RP you can do with the item. I think sometimes that can be quite OP, where you have like, you know, some sort of amulet or something that doesn't really do much. It might give you like +1 to something, but then it's actually like a major plot point, and it becomes like a very. I think that's a weird way of saying it's OP, because it's like, hey, this is a massive plot device, and so
yeah, I tend to do things like that too, where if I'm giving out a powerful item, there's a very specific reason for it, like it's cursed, or you have to use this to kill the final bad guy or whatever. Like it's always this plot key. I've actually done that in my Life Below game, where every character has some form of signature item that, like, usually it's like the druid has an amulet called the Heart of Nature that is like this jagged red jewel that lets him like talk to plants and stuff. But it's like every 5 levels or so, the item kind of awakens a bit more.
I like that.
And gets a little more powerful. So it's something that grows with them, so they're more likely to keep their attunement to whatever their personal item is and not ditch it for a ring of protection or whatever.
Right. But I think what Koiba's getting at there is like taking something that's less powerful and then giving it story importance and then making it powerful that way.
I literally changed the entirety course of my campaign because I destroyed a necklace I was given. So with the campaign's like big bad was going to be Tiamat, and I had this dragon necklace that was like making my lightning burst more powerful, but I was talking to Tiamat the whole time. Didn't know there's just dragon in my brain. I was like, what's your name? It's like, worry about that later. Like, like it's fine. I'm like, cool, I'll accept power. I'm a barbarian. I want more power. Let's rock and roll. And then we got to a point where like I had a homebrew dragon god called Chromatus, who was like the baby brother of Bahamut, just also talking to my brain with a different item. He was like, there's another dragon here. Who the fuck's that? Looks at it and goes, that just hurt me. That's Tiamat. I went, oh, cool. So we found someone who gave us like favors. And I was like, can you get rid of this like evil dragon necklace, please? And that was supposed to be the tie-in for Tiamat in this entire campaign, was like this necklace. And my DM was just like, luckily we've talked about Orcus before, because that's erases Tiamat bit as big bad, puts Orcus in as big bad instead.
Which means you can use Tiamat later.
Yeah, that's why I said I've been like, I'm sad, but at the same time, that's really cool that like a decision I made has like changed the entire RP of the entire story for everyone else. Sorry, I gave you that little bit of extra work.
We've got a similar thing happening with the druid. So his Heart of Nature, they were fighting this group of 4 Eladrin warriors that I derivatively called the 4 Seasons. And so when he killed the summer one, or rather when he reduced it to like 5 hit points or something, it was about to die, and instead it just like, and the spirit like got sucked into his amulet and is now like constantly burning him, and it's still in there.
Ooh.
I think he's kind of forgotten about it. But
Good.
I had that thought where I was like, you know what? This amulet is just tied to nature. I literally called it the Heart of Nature, and they're fighting a bunch of nature warriors. I want something cool and fucked up to happen. So I just kind of stuck it into the amulet, and, I'll figure out what to do with it later, but I bet you it's going to be epic.
100%.
Yeah. Retroactively finding the story reasons for
and the other three, it ended up because they were in like an arena, so it was like an arranged fight, so it wasn't a fight to the death. But since that happened, the other 3 Eladrin like backed up, and now like all of the elves are pissed at this guy because they think he just fucking necromancy sucked up someone's soul when even he doesn't understand how it works because this item is like basically an artifact, you know?
That is so cool. But at this point, that's kind of where we're going to be wrapping up today's episode of the Speak Dicely podcast. So thank you both for joining me on this conversation about barbarians.
Thanks for having me.
And it's at this point that I'd like to give both of you the opportunity to plug any projects that you're working on and your social media. Where can people keep up with you?
So it's catch on Twitch, twitch.tv/KoibaRNG. I stream there a lot more regularly now, unlike previous times I've been on here and told me about myself. Same, I've changed my Twitter handle as well to be KoibaRNG as wow, so I finally fucking got that corked up. But if you want to see me play D&D, I play on Dungeon Select, and that's the same on Twitch, on Twitter, Reddit, all that stuff. We're all on there. Our new campaign starts, so we don't know yet, but July-ish. It's usually the first Wednesday of every month, but this month it's next week, not tomorrow. We play a Hades-inspired one-shot, which has been going on. So we are currently just about to go into Elysium onto that. So it's our third session doing it, which is really cool. So yeah, so Dungeon Select, where you can find me if you want to see me play D&D, but anywhere else, I'm here, there, and everywhere.
I, Jesse, stream with the AI Dungeon Crawlers on Twitch. You can check us out there, and on Instagram at AI Dungeon Crawlers. We do live music and live art along with a computer-generated story that is absolutely bonkers and bananas. We do that every Friday evening. Come check us out. If you just want to follow me and watch me make mead on Instagram, I am at This Is Jesse here. I do homebrew stuff. I turn fruit into wine. It's a great time.
You know, I use a lot of hashtag homebrew in a lot of the stuff I put out, and I think a lot of brewers get confused when they're like, this is not alcohol.
One of these days, I'm just going to do like a homebrewed, like maybe like the Drunken Master, but more of alcohol stuff, and I'll just tag it homebrew twice.
Homebrew, yeah.
Amazing.
Yes.
Well, thank you both so much for joining me on the show. And for the folks at home, if you'd like to keep up with the Speak Dicely podcast, you can find our social medias. I've got Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all at Dicely DnD, as well as the YouTube channel Dicely DnD. If you want to submit a question to Question Dicely, send an email with your question to and a way to give you credit to dicelychannel@gmail.com. Speak Dicely, as an update, is now going to be uploaded every other Friday now at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And this is because the Dicely DnD channel is now also on Twitch, Dicely DnD, with our Play Dicely campaign every other Saturday. And this will alternate with the weeks that the podcast here gets uploaded. So thank you all for bearing with us as we go through all these changes. And that's about all the time we have for this episode. So thank you all for tuning in. My name is Denny, and I will speak Dicely with you again soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
This episode of the Speak Dicely podcast was produced and edited by myself, Teni Brant, and the intro and outro music were created by Salik Brant. Thank you for the support, and we'll see you next time on the Speak Dicely podcast.